Welcome to Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski, and in this show, we explore how truth comes to life through real stories and real people. Today, I'm joined once again by Erik and Patty Dempsey. This is part 3 of their story, and I'm really excited for you to hear this next leg of the story. They've clearly been through a lot. If you haven't listened to episodes 1 and 2, please do so. And we're at the part of the story where we're going to hear a lot more that they've been through that was tough, but we're going to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So, with all that said, let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to the show. Dempsey's, how you doing?
Good.
Really good. Yeah.
Hey, Dr.
Happy to
J.
be back.
Yes.
Yeah, so glad to have you back. What we thought was going to be 1 episode now
Yeah.
is 3, and we'll see how this one goes, right? So, can you give us a recap? Because, we want to fill in the people. Hopefully, if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, you just go back and watch them, press pause on this one. We'll be here when you get back.
Yeah. We'll wait.
It's a good recap for those who have watched the other 2 as well. So, I'll give the floor to you right away.
Awesome. Yeah. So last time we started to kind of dive into what we affectionately call the breaking season.
Yeah.
During our first part of our marriage, we're just kind of growing, getting to know each other, learning that, oh, we can't do this on our own. And so, and then we start reaching out for help in some areas, but not all areas of our marriage. And then there were some things that started to occur that, like I said, we call the breaking season, because it was these some of them were external events that occurred, like a divorce in the family, and but a lot of it too was medical stuff that was occurring.
Yeah.
So our son Josiah got diagnosed with Crohn's disease and had complications with that. I was starting to have issues with my hips, and it was starting to impact my ability to do martial arts, which was vastly becoming basically like a part of my identity almost. And like, because this is something I would wanted to do for a long time. And Patty tore her ACL as a part of that. Um, and so, yeah, it was just kind of like things were starting to kind of crash a little bit around us.
Yeah.
And, and so there was at one point at the end of like 2010 or beginning of 2011 was when a lot of this was kind of coming to a head, where the divorce had occurred. Um, I was trying to step in to help with all of that, to try and, bring support to the family. Josiah was in a big flare with his disease, and I was dealing with depression and just didn't know how to manage all of this, to the point where, the last episode ended with Patty asking me a question about, she could tell something was up, but didn't know what was
Yeah.
going on. And I just collapsed on our bed, basically weeping, going, I don't know how to fix any of this. I felt
Oh,
so useless. I felt so, um, yeah, ineffective. Like, just like,
yeah.
what is the point? Like, I can't seem to fix any of this.
Yeah.
So, um, and what's funny about that, Dr. J, is the fact that, just 3 years earlier in 2007, when Patty tore her ACL, and I had this opportunity to take care of her, it was like, I got so much energy doing that.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's like, when we get into the next part, uh, of kind of our growing season, it's like, I found out why.
Mm.
But the problem is that once Patty was back to being, recovered and able to do the things that she was normally doing, I stopped doing those other things that were giving me energy, and now the depression comes back.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Oh,
and then
brutal.
there's all of this stuff, and I'm getting, maybe 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night because of how much pain was in both of my hips. So, yeah, so it was a tough time and kinda leading into the next little bit here. Do you wanna
Yeah, yeah, because at that same time, I had, like he had shared, I had been recovering from and had recovered from an ACL tear. And one of the things that I really cried out for during that time was this peace. Like, I knew God promised peace, but I'm like, I don't have peace and I don't know where to find it and how to find it. And
Yeah.
so it was like, I had at least a little bit of a measure knowing that, okay, a job isn't gonna make me happy, and I'm not happy in this in marriage, as a mom, as all of these things. So what is it? What is this thing that I'm missing? So there's this elusive piece that I felt like I was missing. And so through that time, I was able to, like, watch different people, learn from different preachers and stuff, as well as doing my own study. So at least I got a little bit of settled, because I remember praying during that time, like, God, just heal me from the inside out. Like, I want this to be more
Oh,
than
wow.
just my knee that gets healed. I know
Hmm.
I need a different way to live. So help heal me from the inside out. And so it was like my first step of being willing to say, there's a different way. And peace is not going to be found in the things that I do or have. I didn't have the language at the time, but I just knew, like, my only peace is going to come from trying to figure out how to be right with God. And
Nice.
so it was like that was the amount of language that I had at the time. So over those next, that was in 2007. So up through 2010, it was like, okay, I was in a different job and I was in a different setting. But seeing Eric suffering, I knew I wanted to take care of him. I wanted to care for him in the way that he cared for me. I was wanting to
Yeah.
care for everybody else in the same way, and so I grew in that capacity, that I could have, like, care for people more and be willing to help people more. So but when what was happening at that time was, then at the end of 2010, I'm there to try to help everybody else, but everybody was asking me how I was doing, I'm like, "I'm good. I'm just, like, focusing on God, trying to be right with God," and just really still not knowing how to share my own thoughts and feelings. And so then it was at the end of 2010, I was working at a church at the time, and I remember distinctly, I was in a meeting, and I went to go get a cup of coffee or drink or whatever, and I couldn't keep my hands still. The coffee was,
Really?
like, spilling out, and it was like, "What's happening?" And then I noticed I couldn't even put a key in the door without holding my hand still. My hands just was
Oh,
shaking uncontrollably. I got more and more symptoms. I felt like I had grit in my eyes, and it was total pain. And so my heart was racing, and all these different symptoms. But I wanted to be about helping Eric. I wanted to be about helping everybody else. So I just kept pushing through until I ended up being in, like, kind of a small group of sorts, and a person there in the group literally came to one of the groups that one night and said, "Hey, I just went to the doctor. Here were all my symptoms." He listed all the symptoms that I had, and he goes, "I was just diagnosed with Graves' disease." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I might have that." And so,
whoa.
like, all right, I'll just go to the doctor. This wasn't something I was not naturally willing to do at this point, but I'm like, all right, if God's gonna, like, help me at least have someone else find this out. So I went to the doctor right away. She looked at my eyes. She said, "Put out your hands." And I'm just, like, shaking uncontrollably. She's like, "Yep, I think you might have Graves' disease." And so with all the testing done, and this was like beginning of 2011,
Right.
I had my thyroid was just off the charts, raging, overactive. So that then put me in a spot where it was like, I believe it was stress induced. I think all the stress
Okay.
that I was keeping within unlocked this maybe predisposition that I had to it, but I got this raging se- uh, um, condition of Graves' disease. And so that year was a whole treatment of that. And then
Can you explain just briefly what Graves' disease is?
yeah, so there's hyperthyroidism, where we have an overactive thyroid, and that can produce a lot of different, like, temperature symptoms, because the thyroid impacts like multiple
Body. It's
systems of your body. And so
Yeah.
my
Okay.
temperature was like all over the place and everything, sweating uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but what's additional about the Graves' disease is that it comes with this eye disease. And so
Okay.
my eyes were actually like starting to bulge out to the point where at night my lids couldn't even close.
Wow.
And so it was just like putting bulging pressure behind the eyes. And so there was all these symptoms that I was having. So, yeah, I needed to get this under control because what can happen, it can cause a lot of damage to the heart
Okay.
because it beats so fast. So I started on the treatment of that in the beginning of 2011 at the same time that Eric, his hips were so bad, but thankfully because of a treatment that our son needed to have due to his Crohn's flare at the beginning of January, which cost a lot of money. It helped us meet our deductible, which then allowed us to help cover what we needed for my thyroid. And then he was able to get his first hip replacement in April of that year.
yeah, it was it was one of those,
Oh, man.
this is really, like, bad, but also really good because it was, like, literally on January 2 of 2011, we get a prescription for an antibiotic for Josiah that fulfilled our $4,000 deductible for the year.
And we're like,
Oh,
all right,
geez.
Alright,
let's go.
everything else
You're
is
like high-fiving Josiah, like, "Hey, thanks, buddy." And it's
Yeah.
like, "Sorry, too."
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Oh,
it was like,
geez.
yeah,
so how I would describe it, I feel like, is that all these physical things were coming up, but I think in a looking back, I think it was this almost this forced rest that we were put into because mentally and emotionally, we were in a really bad hole. And it was like, okay, if this was the only way that we were going to
slow down.
slow down,
Yeah,
then all right, then this is what actually got our attention to consider we need to start doing things differently.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, that sounds tough. So Josiah's Crohn's disease I mean, that doesn't go away,
right,
right?
Right.
right.
But the
And
bacterial
then
infections were able
oh,
to
yeah,
get under
the
control.
flare-ups,
Yeah, yep,
Mhm.
yep,
but
Well, there's
you're
it's like
dealing
a Crohn's flare, but then there's a bacterial infection, which is different, and that's what we were battling kinda both with him.
right, right.
That's insane.
Yeah,
While at the same time, you're both also dealing with
yep,
other ailments, like, a lot of physical ailments going on. So,
yeah.
all at the same time?
All at the same time.
Yeah, basically, because then, like she said, in April 2011, I was finally through a series of, and that's a whole nother story, but it took a bit of work. But luckily, we found a doctor who was willing to work with me. Because again, I'm so young. I was 36 years old.
Yeah.
You know, like, I get
Right.
it. I don't blame them any, like, before, like, back then, I was, like, in such a terrible thought process. It was like, "Oh, you guys suck." But that's not
Yeah.
like, but I get it. I'm 36 years old. That makes sense, and I'm glad that they made me do the work that I had to do because it's a big deal getting a hip replaced.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's like, so here we are, April 2011, got my hip replaced, and I was like, "Okay, we're finally on the way out of this." But it's like the Patties, you know, um got the Graves' disease, but it's like, okay, but we know what it is. We're treating it. It's like maybe we're starting to get our head above water, all of that stuff. And then I take my month off of work to um, to recover. And I go back to work and I drive into the office, I walk in, and my manager's there going, "Hey, if you can drop your stuff off at your desk, and then meet us up in the front conference room, that would be great." And the front conference room is the conference room where they let people go.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
literally, I come back from my short-term disability leave, and I get laid off at the
Mhm.
beginning of May.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
and
And so I'm working at
oh,
the
okay.
church, and we're there's a lot of stuff going on where we're working, and then I get the call at my desk saying, "Hey, I got laid off." So I let my supervisor know. It's like, "Hey, my husband got laid off." They know him, and so they're like, "Yeah, go." So we go.
Yeah, so it was cool because it's like, okay, I get laid off, and we knew that there was stuff going on at the church um that there was potential changes being made within the organization of the church and jobs and all of that. But it was cool because she came home, and then we went to the mall or something,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yep.
and it was just like, but it was this cool thing where we went out because the kids were in school, and so we went out, we had lunch, and while we're doing that, it was just like I just had this peace. It's like when it comes to jobs, Dr. Joel, is like God's always taking care of us with that.
Mhm.
I don't
Nice.
know what it is, but I've just always had this massive faith around my job and where we live. Like I've
Mhm.
never had a fear of would we have a place to live or anything like that. I just felt like God was going to take care of us and show us the way. And so even though we were in our dream home at the time, walkout ranch, this 2 level, fully, 2,500 square feet, it was beautiful. And the view was gorgeous where we were. It's like, okay, I just felt like we just opened up, both of our hands and we just said, God, whatever it is, if we got to move, if this means we can't live in Sherwood anymore, then that's what that means. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah. And so a couple weeks later, well, what was cool, actually, before I go there, what was cool is the next day I'm going, okay, I could feel like depression was and the sadness and the grieving was starting to hit hard. And so I woke up that Tuesday morning going, I'm just going to do one thing. What is one thing that I can do? And it was like, I'm just going to update Facebook. I don't even think I was on LinkedIn at the time. But I'm just going to update Facebook and say, yep, I've, lost or, not in that job anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Like an hour later, a friend of mine who I'd worked with at a previous job calls me on the phone going, um, what what the hell happened? I mean, he goes, wait, send me your resume. And then also, what the hell happened?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy smoke.
Because he worked at a new place that he knew I would be a good fit for. And he's like, and both him and another friend of mine who ended up becoming my hiring manager were like, wait, Eric lost his job. Let's make sure we get in touch with him before he makes a big mistake and goes to work for somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
But they
Oh, man,
after I got hired, I'm like, "You guys are amazing." And so I
that's
just feel
incredible.
like, yeah, I will owe those 2
Yeah.
forever 'cause, my confidence is shake getting laid off at a job, I had no idea how much your
It
confidence
could
could
just be a
get.
shock to you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will owe those 2 for a long time, um but anyway, so then, yeah, so a couple weeks later.
Yeah, it was great that we were just immediately in agreement. We're
Oh,
just
right.
like,
Yeah.
"We're in this together. Whatever happens, whatever we need to sell, we're gonna be okay as a family." And it was so
While
cool.
you're sipping your orange Julius,
Right.
Exactly,
eating your
exactly,
Wetzel
exactly.
pretzel, you're
Where
just
else
like,
in the
"Yeah,
something people go after they get laid off?
Yeah.
yeah, right."
Oh, so it was so cool to just have this peace. It's like I knew that I needed to learn how to manage the stress better. I needed to be willing to share more. So we just handled this differently. And then it was like 2.5 weeks later, you know, they were letting us know that there was going to be restructuring and layoffs happening. And so at any point, we would be told that we would get notified if we were. And actually, Joel, by that point, I had stated to God, I wanted to be let go. Like,
Yeah,
I
okay.
was ready, like, that was my will. It's like, I was done. I just was ready to be done working there but wanted his will. And so it's like, "Your will be done." And so it was funny because then on the day that my name was called, I get called into the office, and it happened to be it was the day, okay, the
Oh, this
timing.
is
This is
cool.
such good
This is
timing
so cool.
where he gets the notification. He gets the
The
offer
job offer.
for his job the day before or the morning of.
I'm trying to remember.
It
It was
was
real
really close.
close.
It was like the
Yeah.
day before the morning of that I went in and I got called and I was told by the person, we're sorry, Patty, we're letting you go. And I literally could not hide the smile from my face. I was just so happy. I was like, oh, this is great. He just got another job and I'm happy to be like, we're
Yeah.
good. And he's like,
Moving
man, I
on,
wish
yeah.
everybody received that news.
Oh, I bet, yeah. That's not easy news to give. Oh,
No, so it's like, I know there are a lot of people upset about being let go, but I just believe it was God's timing and it was time for me to go. And honestly, too, it was like I still needed some time to rest, recovering from still having graves. And so I went back to just surrendering and being like, God, if I just need to go back to being a stay-at-home mom, I'm good. And so again, it was like learning how to get into agreement with each other. I never felt pressured to like get another job. And he just continued, like, God provided so well through that whole season. Just a really long severance pay that he got. We feel like God just like, was so moved on our behalf to give us some time to breathe.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was like the whole rest of the year, I was settled. I was like, I'm good to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm ready to just
Yeah.
be back to, it's not about what I do. It's not about my job. I don't need the job. I'm going to just be about my family. And it was so healing for me to just be settled, to just be me.
right, right.
Whatever I did, just be me
Yeah.
and receive who he is. And then it was like at the end of 2011,
Yeah.
the end of that year, like all of a sudden, right before Christmas, I got this huge desire to go back to school. And
Okay.
and I said, God, I mean, it had been 6 years since I had laid that down. And I said, God, I laid that down. Like, I don't need that anymore. He's like, I know, it's time to go. And I'm like,
Why?
really?
Yeah.
And I was so jacked. I spent the whole day just like looking at what I learned through these previous jobs and what I wanted to do, and discovered that, yeah, I want to go back to be a school counselor, and determined that path for me. And I remember then sitting down with Erik at the time, and we were really involved with volunteering at the church that we were a part of. We were super busy, really involved. And I just said, I really feel like God's calling me to and saying yes for me to go back to school. And this would be a big change. This would mean me not going back to work for one
Right.
thing, and it would mean me being in full-time school. The kids are going to need you to be home more and need you to be more a part of, us.
The
Right.
day-to-day stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I said, are you in agreement? Like, are you willing to stop doing some of the volunteering that you do and just be home? And he was. He was
Oh,
in
right. I
full
was.
agreement.
That's the end of our
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
So that that was like, I just owe him so much, and how much he continued to like, we just continued to learn how to be in agreement. And so that just facilitated a new season of, there's a bit of an identity shift for you of being
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
But I think it strengthened us in our marriage to see us as we were partners, like even more on a different level. I went back to school, I was studying, and then, you know, through that, were monitoring my thyroid and then discovered that there was a nodule, and then they found out that I had cancer. And so then while we were going through that, at
Jeez.
the same time that I was going to be
Yeah.
facing surgery for my thyroid cancer, you ended up like a month prior to that.
Yeah. So December of 2013 is when we had scheduled for her to have her surgery, because that's when she was going to be off of school, for the winter break. So it was going to be perfect timing. The end of November in 2013, I woke up on a Wednesday morning around 3 o'clock in the morning with this really bad back pain, and I could not, like, it was really hard to breathe. Like, it was
Really?
very shallow breathing, and I thought, "Oh, man, my back is spasming or something, like, this is just really weird." And, like, but it was hard to move, all of this stuff, and I'm like, "Honey, I think I think we need to just let's just call the nurse and find out, what's going on, because this is like like, I wasn't, like, gasping for air, but I wasn't, like,
Couldn't
I
take a deep
couldn't
breath.
take a normal breath. Not only could I
Right.
take a deep breath, but I couldn't take a normal breath. I think "This is really weird." So, called them, let them know, um, and they said, "Yeah, we think you should get in, um, kind of kind of quickly." Like,
Yeah, so I
almost like
Treat it
if you
serious.
can't drive there, like, call an ambulance kind of a
mhm.
thing. And so,
Oh, wow, okay.
this is scary. So,
Yeah.
luckily, we were able to drive. The kids were old enough. We woke them up, let them know what's going on. We're going to the hospital, whatever. And so we got there, and I think God played a hand in this, because when we talked to my primary care after that, she's like, "I don't know what would have caused, like, what you were presenting with, that this is the first step the ER doc would have taken." Because the first step that he took was to check to it's called a D-dimer test. It's basically a test to see if there's any sort of clotting occurring inside your body. You get a bruise, and the D-dimer is gonna show positive.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, that was one of his first steps, and my primary care is like, "With what you were presenting, most people would not have had that as the first step." So she said, she's like, "That was amazing that he did that." And so when he did that, that came back positive. There was nothing on my body, so they're like, "All right, let's go check your lungs." And they checked my lungs, and I had 3 blood clots in
Whoa,
my lung.
Mhm.
really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Holy smoke.
it's called a pulmonary embolism, or a PE, but I had no
You had
reason to
no
have
idea,
that. We
yeah.
had no idea what that was, and there was no reason for me to have that. These are the types of things that, like, someone who smokes are more inclined to have, uh, the clots, someone who has cancer, all these things. So it was like, we have no idea why this is occurring.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so ended up, through some testing and all of this, found out that I have an autoimmune disease that, basically, my immune system attacks part of my red blood cells, that, and then it would cause my blood to clot, and it could just happen at a moment's notice. Like, I could literally pass a D-dimer test today, and tomorrow morning wake up with another pulmonary embolism. So it's like,
What's up with you Dempseys in your immune systems, huh?
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, well, we're learning how to take care of that now, Joel. Thank
Right.
you very
Yeah.
much,
Yes,
yes.
we owe you a lot for that.
Thank
Holy
you for the
cow.
doctrine that is helping us out,
Yeah.
yeah, and some
Well,
of the
that's
causes in
incredible.
place.
Yeah.
But wow, okay, so that's a month before you had already known Patty's
Yep,
I
surgery was
knew,
scheduled.
yeah,
yep,
my surgery was scheduled. They didn't know it was cancer, they found out that it was cancer in
during
the
the surgery.
surgery,
Oh,
um,
okay.
but then
Yeah, because they did a biopsy prior to the surgery. It came back,
yeah,
like, inconclusive,
Okay.
meaning it's not a negative, but it's not a positive. So the 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 strategy was go in what? Oh, okay. So there was a strategy for the surgery, found out during the surgery that there was cancer, and then, yeah, and then finished, like, had to completely remove it, which
yeah,
ended up being a better result, because now it's like it's easier for the doctor and Patty to figure out her
treatment,
medication, her treatment.
yeah.
So then, fast forward a couple more months, I wake up in the morning again, have to go to the hospital because I got extreme gut pain, and find out, after testing, after all of that, that I also have Crohn's disease. So now I know where Josiah got it from.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so
Little
every
late in life to find that out though, huh? Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
yeah, that
yeah,
is true.
yeah,
I don't know how common it is to have to wait that long.
yeah. Well, and that what's funny is when you look back in my medical records, back in, like, 2002, I had similar gut pain, They initially diagnosed it as appendicitis, took out my appendix, found that there was nothing wrong with the appendix, but saw inflammation in my colon. But I
Okay.
couldn't get a colonoscopy till I had recovered from the
Yeah.
appendectomy. But because of the drugs they give you to recover from the appendectomy, the inflammation was gone. So there was nothing for them to see during that colonoscopy. But then I went another 12 years before they presented again.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So,
So
like,
you,
it was like
yeah.
a so many things in a row starting from 2007 to now 2014 that all these medical things were happening, and it was like all of these things that just continued to force us to slow down and just learn how to share, how to interact. By that time, like I said, I was in a master's program for counseling. So during that process, it was like, they were sharing with us how important it was to share, how important it was to learn. And I remember, in my first semester or second semester, I had to practice being counseled by a
Okay.
student who was ahead of me. And in that session, like, this was the first time I kinda even seen a counselor at that point, and it was a student, and so he was just asking me questions about what was going on in our life, and as you can hear, there was a lot of stuff going on in our life, and so I just remember sharing, and his feedback to me, even as a student counselor, was, "Do you notice that when you share something that's sad that you laugh?" It's like,
Really?
yeah, like, I didn't know how to feel emotions that matched what I was sharing at that point.
Okay.
Didn't cry. I just moved forward.
I just figured she was dead inside.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so it was these things that were squeezing us, but we still didn't know how to share. I learned a little, I definitely learned things through my counseling program, but when I graduated, this is where I just give God so much credit and so thankful
Yeah.
for this, and the fact that the timing of me graduating was in May of 2015, and I get a job at a middle school in a classroom for special ed students, working with the teacher who, we get to work with these, like, kids that have the most trauma, the most
Extreme
significant
cases.
behaviors, and then it was that my first year in the program, that these 2 men, John and Jonathan, had connected with the school district and asked, "Hey, we have a model for the mind and brain that we think would really help people with understanding who they are and their behaviors and uniqueness. And we'd like to be able to pilot this program in your school district." And thankfully, the school district agreed to have them pilot this program. And they immediately thought of the teacher that I was working with in this classroom because he was known as the behavior expert. And so they got connected with the teacher that I work with, Don, and he started learning from them, and he's bringing back to me this information, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is something new, because that first year, as I was trying to counsel the students, I was using all the tools that I had, and I was running out. I was getting drained even in the first year. It was like, I don't know how long I'm gonna last. But being able to have this new information in a understanding of people's uniqueness that I didn't have before, and then being able to apply it in my second year, it was like, this is really working.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
night and day because her first school year working, we knew in the house, like, when mom came home from work on Fridays, we just let her go down to her bedroom, to the bedroom, and just let her be. I made sure, I made dinner, the kids, like, we don't interrupt mom. She needs to go and, decompress, because it's so much, and she didn't know how to deal with all of it. And it's like, and then, yeah, the second semester of her first year is when, what we now have as instant impact, or flow sets with instant impact, comes in, and it's like,
Yeah.
wait, she didn't need her Fridays anymore.
Wow, that's incredible. So, Eric, you clearly saw a big difference on like just how Patty would come home after school then.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, it was wild because it was like, wait, what happened and how could this change happen so quickly? It was really interesting. And then she's bringing it home too.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time she brought it home, she was like, "Okay," and she had I think for sure Josiah was there. I can't remember if all of us were. She's like, "Okay, I've got this thing, and I want to walk you guys through this." And imagine that she's like, "Okay, so imagine that we're in an ice cream shop," and
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
just so jacked to do this, and it was like, "Wait, is this another one of these personalities? I hate these things." And, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, "No, no, it's even better than that." And so it was just like it was really cool to see her energy and how it's like and the impact to her first. And that's the part that was really cool is it was
Mhm.
like Don and Patty were learning this for them so that they could be in control. They could know who they are. They could understand their thought process in order to be useful to their students.
Mhm.
And it was like, and she started to incorporate it herself and bring it home. And I was like, what is going on? What is
Yeah.
this?
It was
Yeah. It's
absolutely
such a
amazing.
different way, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
it's so
Mhm.
different to like you think the first move would be to teach you how to help the kids, but the first move is for you guys to learn this for yourselves, right?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, totally. And as much as I am so thankful for what I learned in my master's for counseling, it was like this was a different level of being able to understand a person, and it just organized everything that I had learned, and so that I could now bring it home. And we were still struggling. Like
Yeah.
we were supporting each other, but Eric was really struggling with depression. And
Yes.
this was again during times where there would be days where he would call me at work and say, "Hey, I'm not doing well. Can you come home?" And I would take mental health days in order to go home and support Eric. And so it was, like, really hard, and meeting John Lenhart and Jonathan Freese, and it's like and having them take the time every week to be in our classroom and interact with our students and help us understand how to do this in a way that doesn't require seclusions and restraints. I mean, our numbers of seclusions and restraints we had like 70 or 80 in the first year that we were there, and then by the last few years, we had none. It's just like it just completely eliminated seclusions and restraints because we were like interacting with them through their uniqueness, which then it was like, okay, how can we bring this into our marriage? And one of the things that I was excited about was that John Leonard was a coach. He was a football coach and he like loved to do that. And Eric at this point was a coach for our daughters. And so it was like something that he was excited about. And so I'm like, hey, maybe you could get help from John on how to coach your team. And that started giving him some energy again and gave
Yeah.
something to do that was for somebody else and our daughters were on his team too. So it was just like seeing him come to life and then us doing that together as a family. It's like it totally renewed our energy in our marriage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So you got help coaching then? What were you coaching, Eric?
High school girls lacrosse.
Oh man.
So yeah, it was so much fun. So in 2016, um, I started as the assistant coach. The head coach wanted to start building um, a youth program to feed the high schools. So he essentially handed over the um, high school team to me. I became the head coach for the 2017 season. And again, this is kind of where we're getting to know John and Jonathan and Instant Impact and our son. Um, that summer of 2017, right, is when Josiah did the Instant Impact or the Executive 10.
Yes.
Yeah. So Josiah, our son, who was also struggling with depression, um, he through a course of events gets connected with Don the teacher, and because Don wanted to put together this small group of young adults to go through the program that we now know as Instant Impact, and um, his life starts changing. It's like, what? Who's this kid? Like over the summer, it's like, who's this kid? And then it's like, oh, hey, Dad, they have a church. Like there's a church. Like he gets through the program and finds out, oh, there's a church, and it's like, what?
Mm.
And so then he starts going to church, and he is going to church. It's like, what is happening? And and so through 2017, 2018, Josiah is starting to grow like a freaking rocket ship. Patty's getting all of this success in her job, and it was like, okay, this is interesting to me. It's time, and I'm getting to the point where it's like church or no church. I've already had the God or no God. I'm saved. I know God is real. I have that belief, but I'm like, I am really struggling with what's going on at church. And so,
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it was just like, and I think that that was also part of, what was causing some of the depression too. And so yeah, so this is what we kind of call as the season of getting out of the hole, because like Patty said, we get connected with the church. She connects me with John. And I remember the first time I got a coaching session with John was at the first in 2019, the first church service of 2019, and there was the chili cook off, and um
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, who's John? And Patty goes, well, that's John, and I'm like, okay. And so we go down. I'm like, I don't want to make anything happen. It's just like, if I get to talk with them, great. If I don't, great. Super low self-esteem guy over here. And and it ends up that where we sit down was right next to John. And
Okay.
um and I don't know if he was the one or if Patty was the one who initiated hey, I hear you are a high school girls lacrosse coach. And I'm like, yeah, here's what I'm dealing with and all this. And he's like, okay. And then he starts explaining five thoughts, five thoughts for females, one thought. I'm like, wait a second. There's 30 girls on the team, 30 times five, and I've got one. It's like, I already knew I
And
was on
that
number
that's too
30 to
much
one.
math.
Yeah.
That's too much math for the
Yeah.
one thought I have.
So it's just awesome to have him invest in me that way. Um and so yeah, it was just this like really cool experience being at this church, having someone invest in me, having someone invest in us, and like now we're getting this truth that is getting answers to these questions that I've had for decades as a believer that no one's been able to answer. And now I'm getting these answers in a way where it's like, it's not just a platitude. It's not just placating me and going, Eric, stop asking these questions. These aren't for you to ask. It was like, no, please ask more. Ask more questions.
Do you have an example?
Um, yeah, I think it's it was the once saved, always saved.
Okay. Yep.
It's like, what, like, I don't understand this.
Yep. Which
And
is it?
yeah,
Yeah,
which
because
is it?
so often the debates you hear over the years is either side can be convincing in their day, you
Mm.
Yeah,
know, but neither side is settling, which is why there's
yeah.
still debates going on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the church
Yeah.
that I grew up at, that was one of those things that would get brought up every now and again, especially when it was like, what I like to call Salvation Sunday. The church didn't call it that, but that was like, it was, they're doing their salvation message and all of this. And it's just like, no one could, no one seemed to be able to answer that question, that if faith without works is dead, but salvation is achieved without works, then how do those two things work together so that I'm always saved? And then it's
Right.
like, okay, but if I go to hell, well, then they never were saved then. Well, but wait, but they said the prayer. Well, but then they must not have meant it. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. Like my logical brain is not making this make sense. And
Yeah.
Book of Life Church was able to finally answer that with the fact that there are two things that Jesus talked about: salvation and reward. It's like, wait a
Yeah.
second, what is this?
Mm.
It's like, hold on a second.
Right.
And then, and that's also during that time in 2019. 2020, excuse me. So we go to church. No, it was 2019. Yeah. Is that spring I started restoration.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, oh, and that's where a lot of these questions got answered. And that's the other one, Dr. J, is the three omnis.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, because that, right away in lesson 4, it's like, all right, humility check here. How do you define God?
Yep.
It's like I'd grown up with the three omnis and the people asking me, so can God create a rock he can't lift? And it's like, I don't freaking know. Like, what if he created the world? What that's the dumbest question I've ever heard, but okay.
I know. I know. Yeah. I
So
still
why
don't
are we
know the
thinking
answer
about
to
that?
it.
Yeah. It was
That's good.
so like this is what, yeah, was in some ways it was misused before. Like understanding he would have these questions, he would be skeptical, and then you just want to argue. And I would just get so drained because he would just want to argue everything, and then not understanding it. And then it was like, we'd gone to church and we tried another church and it was fine. It's like it was the same thing, but we always wanted to be a marriage and have a marriage that we wanted to serve at a church. That was what we always wanted to do. Like, but it just was like we were looking for that to give us energy because we were not getting energy from our marriage still. It was like as much as we were for each other, there were these things like I had this anxiety and he still was struggling with this depression. And it was like, how do we get energy from this? Because we want to be married.
Yeah.
But how do we get energy from this? Because there are things that still like tick me off about him and even like drive me mad. And then
What?
I get intimidated, all these things,
Yeah.
but I love him so much. I just don't know how to interact with him. I don't understand him. And so it was so cool to be able to reach a point at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, where I'm just like seeing Josiah's growth and
Yeah.
knowing that, okay, we have a little bit of understanding. We're learning how to work together on this lacrosse team. We're getting some coaching, but it's like, but I wanted to be able to like serve a church together, and I still didn't know where to do that. And so I had reached a point where I was like, God, either I'm going to go back, like I know I've reached the end of what I understand about you. I know that. And I want to be able to learn how to hear from you and have confidence that I'm hearing from you and know how to take that direction. But I know that I've reached as far as I can go on my own. And so either I'm going to go back to the church that we were at and just try harder to try to get what I'm looking for, because maybe I missed something, or I'm going to try Music of Life Church and do that. And so we went there, and it was like the moment I walked in, it was like, okay, yes, I felt it. And then through the service, and then being able to experience a sermon, being able to experience how everything was laid out and explained why we're doing what we're doing. It was so settling and
Yeah.
so safe. I didn't have to try to do some wrestling in my brain to kind of figure out why we're doing what we're doing.
Oh yeah. The first sermon that you gave when on my first Sunday was like, this is weird. I'm not arguing with anything that he
I'm not going home with a bunch of, all filled with piss and vinegar, ready to yell at
Yeah.
Patty. Well, not at her, but around her because
around
I'm
her,
so
right? Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
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 It was
Uh,
wild.
and it was
Yeah.
it was so settling because it was like one, Josiah had never had an easy time making friends growing up. And as nice as people were, it was like it was hard for people to kind of connect with him. And from the first person that we met, to see a group of people who knew how to interact with him
Yeah.
and helped him have confidence in his value as a mom, it was like, okay, all
Forget
right,
about it.
I
Yeah.
am in. I
Yeah.
I will owe you for the fact that you are helping my son understand himself and actually have confidence in who he is. And then Eric is a lot too. And I learned that I'm a lot too. And so it was like, as much as I tried to just be really nice, it's like, oh, so it was so cool to have Eric walk in and have these people like be excited to see him, and then not just be excited to see him, but actually like help him understand himself and help him have confidence in who he is. And then it was like, and then getting coaching through restoration myself, it's like, oh, I can ask questions and I can share. I'm scared about this, and what's the catch? And no one's offended by anything that I'm asking. No one's limiting our questions at all.
Yeah.
It was like this absolutely new experience where it's like the picture that I get is this like CPR where it's like we're getting this breath, we're getting air that we can breathe, where we can finally start to kind of relax and just become more ourself individually through restoration. And then it was like, wait, wha- there's a new way we can interact
Yeah.
with each other too, like
Yeah.
that we had never known, even though we've been married for 20 some years. It was so refreshing. And honestly, Dr. Joel, it was like, this was one of the things too that for the first time really breaking out of this isolation where we had friends before, and I want to acknowledge the people that were in our life before, and I'm grateful for them.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that we had people in our life that knew how to break through some of the walls that we had put up and how to help us share more vulnerably
Yeah.
and had understanding to help us know us and want to be known by us.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. I remember, so I met Josiah before you too, because he started coming to Wednesday night services.
That's right.
And then and had already done the what we now call instant impact through Flowcess. He had already done that. And when you two started coming around then and then signed up for restoration, I remember in particular about you, Patty, was you were the one we were the most like, let's see how this goes. She's
Really?
got a yeah. Because we're like, she's got a counseling background
Mm,
Oh,
where there's
right.
a whole other level of humility you have to go through the restoration process when you have all this professional background and schooling,
right.
which now we know. We know a lot of people struggle with the unlearning process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really, really hard, especially if you identify yourself with whatever role that is.
Yeah.
So, but it was so. I mean, it says a lot about you. I mean, your whole family is incredible, but like, that was one thing I remember in particular was there being this like, let's see how it goes with Patty,
Oh, that's
and and it was like there was never a fight. There was never like there. It was just like, okay, well, she's the exception to the rule, then not the rule, and so, I mean,
Uh,
like, yeah, I'm glad I was able to tell you that, but yeah, that
yeah.
was a conversation some of us had is like, let's see how it goes with her. Like, Josiah's great, we've seen him go through this stuff already, and
Yeah.
Eric's on his way too, but Patty's got this
Yeah.
Yeah.
professional counseling, which is like,
Yeah.
that's a whole other wall to break through, which
Yep.
Mm.
anyways, so yeah, thanks for letting me interject there.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate hearing that. I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is amazing. It is. So yeah, I love you two being part of this family now. And
Yeah.
it's incredible the timing of you guys coming around too.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that like we're nearing the end of the season of getting out of the hole. What's I guess how would you guys wrap up that part of because clearly we'll go to a fourth episode for the viewer listening, right?
Mhm.
We got some time yet though, if you wanna.
Yeah, I would say how I would look at this, Joel, is
Mm.
In September of 2019, let me back up. So I knew when we were getting ready to change churches, it was like, I'm not going to jump into becoming a member of the church, no matter what that church was. So we visited Music of Life Church kind of the fall of 2018. The last service of 2018, Patty and I were driving home. We're going, we think we found our home. So we come to church the next week. It's the first service. We call it at Music of Life Church, we call it the State of the Church Address. We experienced that for the first time, and it was like, oh, this is our place. But again, remember, I had made the decision, I'm going to hold off to become a member until I really know
Mm.
that this is the
Yeah.
place. And that only took 3 more weeks. So I really held out, Dr. J.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know. You probably wanted it to be 1 week. So
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And so we became members, started and like I said, got connected with John, had the best season of high school lacrosse of our team's history
Yeah.
and up to that point.
Mhm.
Um, and it was like, okay, I remember coming to you going, okay, and on a service going, asking for prayer, going, I'm struggling with focus, I'm struggling, all this stuff. And he goes, and you said, okay, I'll pray for you, but just so you know, what you're talking about is restoration.
Nice.
But I'll pray.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We can still pray. Yeah.
and so I did, like, right after that, I signed up. And so it was cool because then in that fall of that year, in September of that year, we kinda got hit by the next big thing that was happening in our family.
Mhm.
And it was the of all of these big things that we've talked about throughout our marriage, this was one of those things that when it happened, it was like, "Oh my gosh." But we were like, I don't know if I would say ready, but we were able. That's the word I wanna use.
Mhm.
Like, I felt able to handle it for the first time.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
So this is you dealt with a lot of storms. This is like a nuclear bomb went off,
Mhm.
right?
yes. Yep.
This event that happened,
Yep.
nuclear bomb.
Nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were in the best place,
Oh.
not only us in our like, in our marriage at the time, which, we still have a lot, like, to go with that, but it was like we were in the best support system
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah.
It was like, holy cow, I've never felt so cared for, never felt so, like I said, so able. It was like, okay. And and here it was 9 months after becoming members of this new community, this new family of believers.
Mhm.
So I think that in and of itself is enough to say this is what we learned, and this is how what Musical Life Church has done for us, and even in those 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, like, last time I shared about how when we were in that dark place, there's hope. And but for the first time, I believe we got to experience a hope that wasn't just a feeling that we were trying to muster up,
Oh, great point.
but it was grounded, it was rooted in this doctrine, this understanding, this and this connectedness to a community that had this doctrine and this understanding, this wisdom, that we got to experience what it was like to soar, to be unshakable in a storm, and we owe it all to you guys for that. And so to be able to experience that level of hope, I didn't know that it was possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this was all, I mean, you guys had been through so much as a family, and then for you to go through this nuclear bomb that you went through at the end of 2019, for you to have, yeah, I remember, you two being a really great example of vulnerability during that time too, and sharing what you guys were all going through with the church, and really reaching out when you needed help,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then it also allowed the church to really level up in how it served others, and how it showed compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's so cool is now I look too, it's like it's just, a few months down the road from there is when the pandemic hits too. And
Yes.
Right.
I can't help but imagine that everything you had been through, even the year before up to that point, prepared you for that too.
Yep.
So
Yeah, totally.
pretty incredible.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So clearly, yeah, I mean, what a great season of getting out of the hole
Yes.
episode.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll have to do part 4, which I think it seems right to have an entire episode focused on what happened once you were out of the hole, right?
Yes.
Because it's not just about getting out of the hole, right? We don't live at 0.
I
No.
know. Thank God.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited to have you two back. Any
Yeah.
any final words from both of you before we move on? Anything you'd like to say to people who, were going through similar things that you two were going through during your getting out of the hole season?
Do you wanna?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is that resilience is possible.
Mm.
Nice.
That you can be faced with some of these biggest and hardest things in your life, and the truth of God can be applied in your life to the point where you can manage your thought process, manage your behavior, and make good decisions, seek counsel, get wisdom, and do the right thing, even in the midst of a massive storm or a nuclear bomb or whatever it is. It is possible to be able to bear that burden
Yeah.
and be resilient and be profitable in the wake of those things.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I would want everyone that hears these episodes to know that, and to know that restoration and repair is possible.
Yeah.
Amen.
It
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
real.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You agree, Patty?
100%. And
Yeah.
it was like at that point, it was like getting out of the hole, like I said, felt like we could finally breathe again.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have been so easy to think that that's as good as it gets, to be able to just breathe. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, but there's so much more.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it. Cause yeah, I think when you're drowning, just being able to breathe is like, it's life-saving, right? We
Yeah.
need that.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a lot more than just because you're still just at times just treading water, keeping your head above the wake.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much more on the top of the mountain. So thank you
Yes.
both for
Yeah.
coming on again. I
Oh,
can't
you're
wait
welcome.
for episode 4,
Thank you.
and really to hear how God has moved in and through you both
Mhm.
since getting out of the hole. So
Yep.
thank you.
Yes. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Thank you so
Have a good
much.
night.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you once again to Eric and Patty. And I can tell you now, yeah, clearly we'll have an episode 4. If we already talked about it then. And I think episode 4 will be a great one to put a bow and a ribbon on the gift that they've given us by sharing their story. So there's a couple big things I want to pull out of this. One, they have this great perspective over how all these bad things that happened to them ended up with good in their life. And it reminded me of Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So when we make mistakes, it is possible to get on the wrong side of justice and make a situation bad. However, the Bible said to those who love God and follow his purpose, which would be those taking direction from him through grace, it is possible to take that bad or unprofitable situation and make it good, make it profitable. Now, the thing to remember, though, is the result would be less than the perfect result. Making an unprofitable situation profitable will also be less than if the individual had taken complete direction from God, taken complete direction from his grace in the first place. There's nothing God can do to make the situation as good as it would have been had I just been obedient from the start. Now, a deeper look into this verse actually shows a flaw in Calvinism. If God had already determined everything ahead of time, we're going to see the flaw in that perspective. First, when Paul stated all things in this verse, it meant God is able to work all things, not some things. Second, going back to Romans 8:18, we see that we must face the sufferings of this present time. With that said, the all things work together for good includes bad and or wrong things. Isn't that the point of this verse? To encourage us that even when we make a mistake, God can fix it for good? The point I'm trying to make here, though, is if God can turn our mistakes into good, why is God having to adjust it all? According to Calvinism or determinism, wouldn't God have seen the mistake before it happened? Wouldn't the mistake have been the plan all along? Wouldn't making up for our mistake really show a flaw in the Calvinist belief in God's plan from the start? Something to think about. The last thing I really want to dive into is depression. Erik was really generous in sharing and being vulnerable about what he dealt with back in the days when he shared over this episode. Now, the one thing I want to get to start right off the bat is say the mental health issues we have or we carry with us are effects. They're not a cause. Like I ought not to be identifying with them. There's something I have. They're not who I am. So what is the cause then if these are effects? Well, with depression in particular, the cause is contradictions in my belief system and a lack of humility. Now, a little brain info here for you. God only gave us direct control over 10% of our brain. This is known as the conscious brain. This is the human brain. The rest of our brain, the 90%, is the unconscious. This is the cause of all of our energy. And we are not in direct control over this 90% of our brain. Another key point to understand about the unconscious brain, the 90%, is that this 90% cannot operate in opposition to the law of causality or to the law of non-contradiction. However, the 10% of our brain is where we can lie. We can operate according to the opposite of causality, and we can operate according to the opposite of non-contradiction. We can choose to try to live in opposition to reality. So imagine how ill we would be if we had control over more of our brain. Mental health issues are already a plague in the world and in the church. How much worse would they be? Now, let's get into it a little bit. When people judge others for something and then avoid admitting they are wrong when they do that same thing, the unconscious brain depresses that person's energy until they resolve that contradiction. So my unconscious brain, your unconscious brain, everybody's conscious brain doesn't care which way the contradiction is resolved. I can either stop judging that person or I can admit that I do the same thing. Once the contradiction's resolved, the unconscious brain stops depressing my energy. Now, the people that I tend to be impressed with, especially in this area, are people who are seeking out who God is, regardless of what it does to their currently held beliefs. These people are humble enough to deal with the discomfort of removing contradictions in their lives. And they are either on their way to removing the depression in their life or they already have. So the ultimate answer for depression is having a non-contradictory model for your beliefs, especially the keywords that make up your beliefs. This is why so many people were helped with their mental health issues upon reading and understanding Modeling God. Why? Depression is an effect of contradictions. And Modeling God helped resolve and give truth behind the contradictions so many people have. And still today, that book is helping people become healthier in their thought process. One of the reasons that I did so many podcasts, whether it was What the Flock, the Mulk podcast, the Modeling God podcast, the Modeling God's Wills podcast, and even this podcast, is to give people the truth, the doctrine, the definitions they need to thrive in life, not merely try to survive. So check out Restoration as a resource as well. You can visit musicoflifechurch.com. That course that Patty and Eric talked about is there to help you with your mental health as well. And last but not least, I just want to touch on this one thing that I found really, really cool. Still in the vein of contradictions and depression, but it deals with Anthony Flew, who is a famous or was a famous atheist. Did you know that C.S. Lewis had a debate with him? Now, I have an experience with Anthony Flew as well, not personally or not directly anyways, but I had actually learned a lot about some of the debates he had when I was going to seminary and getting my doctorate. We would use his debates and a lot of times like straight up transcripts from interviews and TV shows that he was on and radio shows that he was on in order to help us be able to better understand who God is and how to make an argument for God's existence. But C.S. Lewis debated him as well. Now, long after C.S. Lewis died in 2004, Anthony Flew came to the realization that God did exist. So you have this famous atheist who basically says God exists. It's no wonder a Christian seminary wants to talk about this guy, right? But what was his conclusion that made him believe God existed? Causality. There had to be a first cause. We would call that first cause God. But Anthony Flew then went on to say that this God that he said existed couldn't be the God represented by Christians. Why? Because of the principle of non-contradiction. Anthony Flew stated that the explanation for God's nature that was expressed by Christians was contradictory, which therefore means that God represented by Christians could not be the one that is the true God, which believing in that definition of God, anything other than God being always completely righteous and always completely just, ultimately will lead to depression. So has the church gotten better or worse since 2004? What's your definition for God? Thank you, Patty and Eric. That's it for today on Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski. You can find Patty and Eric on social media. You can find the restoration process at musicoflifechurch.com. You can find the model for the mind and the brain at flowsys.com. And all the other resources you can find all over the internet, whether it's all the podcasts that I've been a part of or even the books that I've helped commentate and John has written. So yeah, go check out all those resources. There's so much to learn. Thank you for listening. Keep seeking truth. Keep living it out. I'll see you next time.